Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacy.
Steve, I hear chirping birds in the background.
Yes, it is great weather here in Arizona, and I am, much to the chagrin of some of my family, I am very much a open windows, open doors kind of guy when you can.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I would do that too, except in my office here, if I open the window, I'll have my next door neighbor's dog barking probably, and it won't be a very good situation. But I have a nice backyard, and we actually sit in our backyard. We've got a canopy up, so to speak. I don't know how to say it, a sail, I guess is what you call it. And we've planted a bunch of stuff the last couple of years, and we have hummingbirds like you do, and we have birds, bird bath.
And it's only going to be 96 today.
So only 96.
Perfect weather for
perfect.
having the windows open.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Welcome to Tucson, Arizona.
Arizona has these wild swings though, because it'll have a 40 degree swing from morning to evening or morning to middle of the afternoon. So right now it's really cool out.
60 degrees in the morning and 98
and 96 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
That was today.
Yeah, that's today. Alrighty, well, folks are probably wondering, what are we going to do? What are we going to talk about in this podcast? So what are we going to talk about in the Church Solutions podcast?
So we're going to talk over current trends in the church.
Yes.
So you have put together some Gallup data. We have some Unstuck data that I thought was really interesting.
Yes.
And then was it Mike Rainier? What's his last name?
Mike Rainier. Thomas Rainier.
Thomas Rainier, yeah.
You're pulling a Phil Thompson there. You got the name wrong, Thomas Rainier's got some ideas. So,
ideas on
how to
go for it.
Yeah. Well, all right. So, a few weeks ago, Tony Morgan, if you haven't gone to Tony Morgan Live, you should check out Tony Morgan Live. He was an executive pastor of several churches, and now he has basically a consulting company for churches, and they call themselves the Unstuck. I don't know what the Unstuck group or something, but if you just Google Tony Morgan Live, you'll get it. He teamed up with another group called, and I don't have my font went down here and I'm trying to read it. Church Fuel. Church Fuel is another group that they partnered with, and they surveyed 132 churches between November 2020 and this year, January 2021. But before we jump into that, I wanted to just pull up a poll that Gallup did. And Gallup's been doing polls on churches since 1937. And according to Gallup, Americans' membership in houses of worship continued to decline last year. And again, last year, that's not a no-brainer with COVID, but let me keep going here. Dropping below 50% for the first time in Gallup's 8-decade trend. In 2020, 47% of Americans said they belonged to a church, synagogue, or mosque, and it was down from 50% in 2018 and 70% in 1999. And then U.S. church membership was 73% when Gallup first measured it way back in 1937. I think the year my sister was born, and remained nearly 70% for the next 6 decades before, and this is our point here, before beginning a steady decline around the turn of the 21st century. So there has been a decline for the last 21 years.
From what I understand, the question was, what church do you belong to, or do you belong to a church, basically? And that was
house of worship. Yeah.
It doesn't mean they actually go to church
or
they are a regular attender. This is just, they can just name a church that says, my church is XYZ.
Yeah.
So I've been in 6 months or 3 years, but that's my church.
Yeah.
So that number has dropped below 50%.
And so what I thought we could maybe talk about real quickly here for the past 6 months, from November to January, November 2020 to January 2021, the Unstuck group has got some analytics here, some stats that I know you love, and we love stats. And so we thought we'd throw some of these out here just to give people an idea how people were doing how churches were doing during COVID, I guess. Is that how we want to put it?
Sure.
All right. So the first one would be in-person average attendance was down 32%. This is from, they surveyed churches from November 20 to January 2021. Okay, so this is obviously COVID related. I mean, all these are that we're going to read right now. Online services, though, were up 409%. No big surprise there, I don't think, right? Because nobody could meet, so they're streaming online, which is what we do for a living, by the way, streaming church.
Yes.
Yeah, number of people baptized the previous 12 months was down 56%, which again, of course, it's COVID, so you're not meeting, so you're probably not baptizing a lot of people. Or if you're meeting, you're not meeting in large numbers. And then new people added to the church's database was down 44%. So they didn't add a whole lot of people, which again, not really eye-opening, right? And then adults and students and small groups were down, what was that, 2% total, which that is interesting, just down 2%.
Yeah. I think these are all really interesting because you can kind of look behind the data and go, what's going on here? And there's a trend that we'll talk about here. But and then give us that last stat here.
The last stat was general fund giving, so donations basically up 1.2%, and the total cash reserves were good for 22 weeks. So reserves, people have on hand were good for. So the giving actually went up a little bit during COVID.
Right. So as I look at this, in-person attendance down by over 30%, giving up slightly. Online views obviously way up through the roof. New people added to the database. You could see that was that was down, and that's because I think the in-person service is a gateway to commitment. So this is really measuring, in my opinion, a commitment level. There's fewer people coming, but the people that are coming are more committed. So there's a shift going on within the church. Right.
I think that's fair to say that.
This, if I go out on a limb here, if, in one sense, as I look at this, it could be considered kind of like persecution. This COVID was, it wasn't a persecution of the Christians, but this is going to be what, as a church continues to decline and become more countercultural than the culture is, the church is going to become more and more persecuted. And I think this trend will continue, that the numbers will continue to go down, but those that are committed will the giving is up. And so anyway, that's why it was really, and the small groups was just barely affected at all. So,
and I don't have the details. And by the way, if you want to get this full report, again, just go to Tony Morgan Live. Those of you listening or watching here, because they'll give you it's in a PDF, and there's lots more stuff here that we just don't have time to cover. I kind of wonder about the small group thing. I mean, like our church was doing online small groups, your church was doing that. So I wonder if that had something to do with the limited decline because people were still meeting maybe online. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think so, but the small groups are still there. So this takes my mind to, and you probably know who penned this, but there's the concentric circles for around the church. That starts with the
you got the core. Are you referring to the?
Yes. So the core is at the very core. And then as you go out from the core, then there's there's outer circles that goes to volunteers.
There's
and then
membership.
Outer circles, membership, and then attenders on the end, and then visitors on the far outside core, and then just people that are aware of your church on another outside core.
Right.
And so what I see, happening here is it's really a strengthening of the core. The core is doing okay. It's just the reach of the church has diminished, and its ability to draw people to the church has gone down as well.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point. That's a very good point. The study also talks about staffing levels. They remain high compared to the attendance declines. And again, I'm not sure why that is. I mean, part of it was, I think, for some churches, like, okay, we're in COVID here, but is this going to end next month? Is this going to end 2 months from now?
I think that's a major, large part of it.
And then also, some churches took advantage of the PPP, the payroll protection plan, I think is what it was called. My church took advantage of that. I don't know if yours did or not. And so we actually did take advantage of that. And actually, I think I'm no longer with my church. I've retired after 42 years, but I think they're trying to take advantage of the next PP that came out earlier. So I don't know whether that helped, keep people on staff, but as you said, as we read in the stat here just a minute ago, the finances were fine. So there's probably several factors about that as to why the staff levels remained high. The average church employs one full-time equivalent staff person for every 49 people in attendance. So one full-time person for every 49 people that shows up. This is all part of this study. That includes all ministry and support staff. I'm just going on here. Is that okay?
Yeah, these are great. These are good things that people will be interested in.
Tony goes on to say, we know from previous research that growing churches have a 35% fewer staff positions than declining churches. That's interesting.
Yeah, that you would think it would be the opposite, right?
Yeah.
That the growing churches are, we gotta staff up for growth. Yeah. So let's hire before we need the people. And that was actually a mantra in our church.
Yeah.
You gotta hire so you can grow. And that's not the case.
Yeah. Churches lean on part-time staff more than other sectors of the economy. So the average church has 50% of their staff working part-time. By comparison, the current national average remains at 17% part-time workers, according to the Department of Labor. So he's comparing here, if I understand this correctly, church workers versus everybody else. Yeah. And so 50% of the staff is working part-time for churches, but if you compare that to the national averages, labor, secular, I guess, 17% part-time workers.
Right. And that kind of makes sense too. Yeah. I mean, the church is always been a very lean, mean machine. They don't have big profits to drive, big staff and things like that. So, whereas national average of businesses is going to be a little different. They're going to be able to, get full-time staff more easily.
Yeah. Moving along here, churches have a span of care of one volunteer leader for every 12 people in attendance. Leaders include adults and students who are serving in roles where they are responsible for leading a team or a group of other people. If you add up, you want to comment on that one or not?
It goes to my, tidbits of knowledge. Wasn't that a Roman, or is that a biblical thing? That the Romans organized that way, right? The Roman armies.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
a
true.
leader for every 10 people,
yep.
a centurion for every 100.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's true. If you add the number of people viewing messages online, that's one volunteer leader for every 24 people. So that's a little sub deal there. And then 83% of churches are currently, and this is kind of what we wanted to get into here just for a few minutes, 83% of churches are currently sitting on the downward slope of typical church life cycle. So you can't see this, but there's a cycle, a life cycle that everything has, and churches are no exception. And so you have kind of the church starts at one point, and then kind of, the bar kind of goes up, so to speak, and you go up and you hit the peak, and then you begin to go down. And according to Tony's numbers here, 83% of churches are currently sitting on the downward slope of a typical church life cycle. Interesting.
Yeah. That has to do, I wonder if that has to do with the age of the church and that sort of thing, and when the church was started. And
right. Yeah, I think that's probably true. But again, I want to go back to the Gallup thing that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast here. I mean, overall, since the last 20 years or so, there's been a decline
Yeah,
in
definitely.
attendance, and so the obviously question, when I see something like that, I go, okay, how do we fix it? And that's a good question. One of the things that Gallup talks about is that part of the reason for the decline is people are no longer associating with like a denomination, or they're just not associating with a group that in many years ago they used to. Yeah, I'm a Baptist. Yeah, I'm a Methodist. I'm a missionary Baptist church, whatever. There, a lot of people are not doing that anymore, so that's part of it. So anyhow, there are some solutions that Thomas Rainiator. Now I see you screwed this up at the beginning of the podcast. Now you actually, nobody heard it, but you mispronounced. What did you call it? Dennis Rainier? But anyhow, I wanted to throw some garbage on you. But Thomas Rainier has some solutions, what he thinks would be solutions to help churches grow. Did you just flush the commode?
No, I didn't. I'm seeing that somebody's going to walk up to the door, so I turned down my Alexa device because I've got Ring doorbells that say somebody's at the door.
Okay. Speaking of Alexa, we need to talk a little bit about remind me before we go away here, we need to talk about mychurchdaily.com. But yes, that's another subject. So, all right. So, shall we talk a little bit about solutions to this?
Yes, suggested solutions.
Suggested solutions.
And some of these are kind of going along with working with the core to a certain degree.
Yeah,
or kind of strengthening the core.
Yeah, this is stuff. So I was, as you know, I was in church work for a long time. I helped start churches and I helped restart churches, and these are a lot of things I would agree with. Maybe I'm a dinosaur, but I would agree with some of these things. And one of the things that Thomas Rainier says, he gives 5 solutions here, and see if you agree with these. The first one he says is you need to raise the expectations of membership. So there's a lot of churches, and I've seen this because I've been involved in churches for many years, and many of the churches I was a part of in the early days, there was no expectations. There was no membership, or if you were a member, there was nothing expected of you. It's like, okay, now you're a member, and there was just nothing that you really had to do differently or be involved in or anything like that. In fact, that was one of the things I was really pushing at my last church before COVID hit. I said, we need to talk about membership and what we expect of people, because people, if they're not, I guess it's the old question, if you don't ask people, nothing will happen. You know what I mean? And so if you just assume people are going to be involved because they're members, that usually doesn't happen. It will for some people, but you really need to ask people to make commitments. And here's what we're talking about. And so that's one of his things, expectations, which I think leads into the next one.
Yeah, raise expectations of membership. That's his first one. Yeah,
that's his first one. And then his thing is require an entry class for membership. Require an entry class for membership. I still think this is important. There's lots of people that would disagree with this. But again, if you have a membership class in some form, some way, you are making a statement that membership is actually meaningful, that, and really your class, or whatever you want to call it, should be used to state what your expectations are and what really a committed member looks like. And when I did this, I helped start a couple of churches, and one of them was in Kansas. I just felt like it was really a positive thing because people knew what we were about. They understood who we were. Most of them did. And we even talked about giving and all that stuff. And so, and there's people like Rick Warren who made this famous. He has like class 101. This was back in the 90s. Class 201, class 301, class 401. He's probably got a class 501. Who knows? Or he's changed it. But I liked it because it really helped you understand, what your role was in the church, the expectations that membership brings on you. Plus, you get to understand what the leadership is dealing with, and you can understand what the church is all about, and you can be a part of that church if you want to, or you don't have to be. There's no guessing. There's no, oh, I've been here now for a year and I realized, oh, you guys believe that? Oh my gosh, I don't believe that. Well, you've been here a year, so at least you can get this stuff out and help people understand what you're all about, your vision, your purpose, what you're trying to do in life.
Yeah, I completely agree with this one.
Yeah.
You don't want to have them say, do you want to become a member? Sure, just fill out this form and send it to us and you're a member. Like, nah, it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did at my last church. Right?
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. So that's why we were trying to change it. Yeah. So and I think that this helps. And I think, to your point earlier, decline, memberships on decline, so to speak, or church attendance is on decline. But I think if people who do eventually get involved in a church and have some kind of understanding that we're just talking about here, makes them much more committed and makes them much more, they'll just be more effective for the kingdom of God.
Right.
Other than just,
other than you're gonna, everything's gonna be a little more obvious. There's not gonna be this kind of wishy-washy kind of thing going on. It's gonna be, went to the class, understand it. I'm signed on as a member. I'm moving forward. You may lose some people. They may go through the class and go, no, this ain't going to work for me.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing. I mean, to have that clarity. Anyway, all right, moving on here.
Moving on. Encourage ministry involvement. Now, so again, I think that could be part of a class, but you don't necessarily have to make it a class. But his third point here, which I would agree with, is encourage ministry involvement. And again, he goes on to make the point that many members become less frequent attendees because they have no ministry roles. They have nothing they're doing. They're just showing up. And so if people have responsibilities and there's encouragement to be involved in ministries and even help start ministries, they're going to feel like they're more of an integral part of the church, and they'll be more inclined to be not just showing up, but actually involved in helping people. Which is what it's all about here, is helping people, serving your community, serving people in your church. So that's a point he makes. And then the fourth point is offer more options for worship times. This is tough. If you're in ministry, if you're on staff, if you're a senior pastor, this one is a hard pill to swallow because it means you got to do more.
Yeah, a little more, but we have a solution, right?
That's right. We do have a solution.
Simulated live.
That's right.
Record your service and then have 6 of them on the weekend.
Yeah.
So
it's
not the same as in-person worship or service times, but there are things you can do.
Yeah, we could call it a hack, so to speak. But so I mean, record your stream your service live, and then obviously record it. And when we call simulated live with us, streamingchurch.tv, that's who we are. If you use our simulated live feature, and you can set it and forget it, so to speak, and you could have multiple services, and it can come off like it's live, and
have a Tuesday evening service. And
whatever
it would be to kind of help these people out that work weekends and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but Thomas Rainier, what his point about this whole thing about having more options is that our culture has now become 24/7. And it's really true. I mean, people are working all sorts of days and hours, people working all sorts of night shifts and things. And so it's difficult sometimes for people, especially in bigger cities, to be involved in their church work. So if you're even just attending or something. So if you have opportunities, a Saturday night service or whatever it might be, for people to connect, it will give them an opportunity to be involved, and it can open the doors up to more, and this is something he doesn't put in here. So this will be a Phil Thompson solution here, so to speak. But the bottom line is you want to give people an opportunity to create relationships. And that's to me is very important. Content, people can see content. We just had this discussion. Did we have it with Rick Livingood or one of the guests we had here a few weeks ago on the podcast? Content now is out there. You can get content 24/7, and that's good. But what's going to get people back in churches, back in the facilities, is seeing some people face to face and the relationships they have with those people. And I'm an introvert. Yet I still like to have a relationship with people. I don't like to have a relationship with a lot of people, but I like to have a relationship with certain people. And going to a service not only gives me an opportunity to hear content, so to speak, but also connect with those people that I haven't seen for a week or two, and maybe catch up a little bit, and maybe plan something later now that COVID seems to be going away. Plan some other activities. And so when you create opportunities for people to meet, it gives an opportunity for people to have a relationship, which to me is what the driving point of is in life, and especially Christianity. All right, I'm off my soapbox now. I'll get down from that.
All right, one more, right?
One more. And one of the things he brings up is monitor attendance of each member. So this is interesting. Monitor attendance for each member. This is a solution, he says, to decline. This approach is often difficult, as he says here. Yes, it is, especially in worship attendance. That's why the traditional Sunday school approach, calling absentees when they're, weren't there, smaller groups, that was effective. And then he goes on to say, perhaps churches can incorporate that approach in all of their groups. So members are less likely to be absent if they know somebody misses them. This is a hard thing to do. I've gone over this in multiple churches. How do we get these people we haven't seen for a while? And it is hard, which is small groups are part of the solution to that. But if you can monitor attendance of each member, I'll just throw that out there. He throws it out there. I'll let it lay. I think there's some creative ways to do that. One of them is emphasizing small groups. And if you can get people involved in small groups, then you have a better chance of connecting with them. And then when you don't see them on a Sunday, it opens the door up to more of a reaching out and a contact. That's my point. I don't know.
Or you could use our follow-up tool. We'll do it for you automatically. Somebody came and they didn't come back.
Well, yeah. So you're talking about streaming, yeah, which we have a follow-up tool, streamingchurch.tv, which is, a lot of people like it. And it's a great little tool. And it doesn't take a lot of work to make that to implement it, because it's pretty much all automatic. And that definitely opens the door. So there's different ways to do that. But you count, somebody gave me a hard time. This was years ago. Somebody gave me a hard time about, well, why do you count the people that show up Sunday morning? Because, I'd be back counting people. Yeah, we had 195 people today. And I would say, well, do you count your money? And they would say, yeah, we count our money. Of course we do. This was another pastor, I think, that was telling me that. I said, so you do take an offering, you count your offering, right? Yes. Well, what's more important, your people or your money? Because, when I count people, those people represent somebody. They represent value. And so when we're going down, it helps us understand, okay, why are less people coming? Plus, if you're able to identify people that maybe you haven't seen for a while, then you can reach out to them and find out if there's a problem, if they need some help, whatever it might be. So anyhow, I'm rambling on here, sorry.
All right.
So the Unstuck group, if you want more information on this stuff, just Google Tony Morgan Live. One of these days, he'll break down and be a guest on our podcast. We'll force him to be a guest. But there's also other stuff out here. Thomas Rainier is one of them. And then you can just do Gallup, Google Gallup, and you can find more stats about churches and church declining and all that stuff. But hopefully this has been a little bit helpful today. And before we go, mychurchdaily.com. What is it, Steve Lacy?
Mychurchdaily.com is a way for pastors and staff to stay connected with their people during the week. It gets your message on every Alexa device in the world. Alexa. You can be a part of Alexa's set of media. So
flash briefing.
Yes, right? We give you an easy way to get your message recorded and scheduled for every day for every one of the 30 plus million US households, and I'm sure it's more worldwide.
Yeah.
So
hold on a second. Alexa, stop. Did I mute myself? I didn't mute myself. I actually had it here when I mentioned that magic word. it started to play a flash briefing. I don't know if you heard that. It was way in the background. But yeah, so go to mychurchdaily.com and check it out. Make a free trial. It's a 14-day free trial. And as always, we are here to help you. It's part of our products. We have streamingchurch.tv. We have churchapplive.com. We have myflock.com. And now we have mychurchdaily.com. So check us out. We've been serving churches for 20 years. So we're out of time. How about that?
All right.
Steve, thank you very much for your time today. Sure appreciate you very much.
Good to be here.
All right. And folks, thank you for listening to the Church Solutions podcast or watching us. And if we can help you in any way, please reach out to us. We are here to help you and your church. Support at streamingchurch.tv is one place you can get a hold of us, or just go to one of our many domains. They're not magical; they're just domains. One of our many domains, and one of them is streamingchurch.tv. All right, we're done. Have yourself a great day. Take care of yourself. We'll catch you again next time.